right, welcome. Welcome to our USU Alumni Association event with Chocolatier John Neal. My name is Kim Larson. I'm the USU Executive Director of the Alumni Association. We're excited to have people from 20 different states and several people from Canada tuning in tonight. So we're excited for you all to join us. I wanted to quickly mention a few activities that we have coming up with the Alumni Association. We have Aggie Day at Lagoon. We have some outdoor events with kayaking, rock climbing, canoeing, and we actually have a humanitarian event coming up. It's a family humanitarian expedition to Guatemala, and they're doing $100 off if you sign up by the end of May. So if you want more information on any of those events and activities, please go to usu.edu/alumni or follow us on our social media channels at at Utah State Alumni. All right, so now on to tonight's event. I'm actually not going to introduce John because we have a special guest, Spencer Nelson, who's going to join us. So, Spencer and John were roommates and teammates, and if you guys that don't know Spencer, he actually played for 10 years in Europe after his career at Utah State, and now is a financial advisor here in the Valley, and they've stayed close friends through all this. We're going to let Spencer take a minute and introduce his friend John.
Hey, Aggie alumni, good to be here. Thanks so much, Kim. I've known Kim for a long, long time, since the athletic department, but we are here to talk about John Neal. So, Juan, I've known you for about 20 years now.
Yeah, half my life.
John is from Northern California, Los Altos, and went to La Cañada Junior College. Grew up, his mom made chocolates. John never made us chocolates in college. Why not?
I didn't have it then.
I think you had it, you just didn't know it was in you yet.
That's probably true.
So Johnny and I were roommates from the very beginning at Utah State, and I want to tell just a couple stories about John before I pass him off to the chocolates. First story. You remember when you broke my nose?
Yes. I remember.
How was that for you? Which
elbow
elbow was it?
It was this one.
It was this elbow, and I pump faked.
Shouldn't have pump faked.
And you did what?
I hit you in the nose.
You went for the pump fake, and I went through, and then boom, just like that.
Made it prettier.
That was one story, but one of the funnest stories is in our senior year, after we won the semifinal game to go to the championship of the Big West tournament, we could not sleep. We were the late game, and we couldn't sleep. We were so excited. So we were in the hotel room, 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and we were just being stupid. And we were singing a song. John, what was the song that we were singing?
You want me to sing it?
Yeah. I like papayas. Mangoes are sweet. I like bananas.
But nothing can beat
the true love of God. That was from my mission. That was a long time ago. Anyway, Johnny and I have been through a lot, and if you are outside of Cache Valley, you probably don't know one of the greatest things you can do around Christmas time is get chocolates from Johnny. He makes unbelievable chocolates. He delivers them to clients and friends and neighbors and anyone. So do whatever you can to suck up to John to get these chocolates. The nice part, I guess, is you're going to teach them how to make, so they don't have to suck up to you.
That's right.
They don't even have to be nice to you anymore
correct.
After tonight.
That's right.
They can ignore you, forget about you completely, and make their own chocolates.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Still be nice to
Same
Johnny,
with
though.
you.
Anyway, thanks for letting me come, and enjoy tonight. John's going to be great.
Thank you, Spencer. I thought you were going to get emotional. And thank you, Kim. I found out tonight that Kim actually worked in the athletic department, and she made the sports cards of us players. And I love sports cards. And I remember being so excited that I got a sports card of myself, which was really fun. But we're not going to talk about basketball tonight. We talked about enough basketball on the Instagram alumni takeover. By the way, one little disclosure, if anyone followed the Instagram takeover, the text from the alumni department asking me to forget about the past and focus on chocolate, it really hurt my feelings. No, I'm just kidding. That was staged. I asked my buddy Sheldon to send that. I thought it would add to the spirit of the Instagram takeover. But anyways, I am really excited to talk to you about chocolate. It is something I am passionate about. It is my creative outlet. I do loans for a living, mortgages, and the problem with if you try to get creative with mortgages, that's called loan fraud. And so I can't get creative with mortgages, but I can get creative with chocolate. And I'm going to teach you all about chocolate tonight. Okay, this is going to be a lot of show and tell. Okay, a lot of how I do these classes is kind of showing tools that chocolatiers use, and some show and tell. I know some of you may have purchased chocolate and have some of the tools, and so we're going to go through that too. Okay, first things first. Oh, I have to give a plug to the Aggie chocolate factory. You have to go do a tour if you're local, because it is incredible. And it's super unique to a university. In fact, I asked them, and it's the only chocolate factory at a university. So I don't make the chocolate, right? As a chocolatier, you're really sourcing the chocolate, you're making the confections, and then covering it in the delicious chocolate that you've chosen. Chocolate making, they actually make the chocolate, meaning they're getting the cocoa beans, they're drying them, they're roasting them, they're cracking them, they're getting the nibs, grinding those into a liqueur, extracting the cocoa butter, adding it back in, conching it to get rid of all the bitter flavors, and that's what they do at the Aggie factory, and it's so cool. And they gave me some chocolate that I'm going to use today. First things first, I mentioned the cocoa butter. So the cocoa butter is kind of like, that's the ingredient that you have to get the right chemistry to make your chocolate tasty and beautiful, okay? And I'm going to show you why. I don't know if you can you see this right here? Can you see that right there? A little head nod maybe. Okay, so this is the chocolate that I got from the Aggie chocolate factory. You can see it has this kind of white film all around it. We call that bloom. And what it is it's the cocoa butter that has risen to the surface. It's separated from the cocoa solids. And it's kind of chalky. It's not pretty. This chocolate is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Some people make the mistake, they buy chocolate, they see that bloom, they think it's gone bad, and they throw it away. It's not bad, okay? All you have to do is you have to temper it. And that's what I'm going to teach you tonight, one of the things I'm going to teach you. After you temper it, which is what I did last night, it turns into this, okay? It becomes glossy, it becomes hardened, it doesn't melt in your hands. And this is the chocolate you want to cover your confections with. So this is I made some buttercreams last night, and this is what it looks like after you dip it in the tempered chocolate. So I can hold this in my hand, it won't melt. When someone bites into this, it'll have a snap, and it'll have a perfect mouth feel, and you're going to get that flavor distribution in the way that you want. If you eat chocolate like this, it's not going to be very fun to eat. It's going to be kind of chalky, and it's already kind of melting in my hands. If you just melt chocolate, okay, without going through the tempering process, you're going to get this, okay? And that's because the cocoa butter crystals, the cocoa butter is the fat, but it's also, they form these polymorphic crystals. I don't know what polymorphic means, but I feel like it makes me sound smart. But there's 6 different polymorphic forms it can take. The first form of those cocoa butter crystals are like this. They're not very solid. They melt in your hand. They melt at a low temperature. The crystal form that we're going for is form 5, the 5th one, and they're stable and they're glossy. They melt at the perfect temperature, and that's what we're going for. The cocoa butter, the form 5 crystals are destroyed at 90 degrees, okay? So, hypothetically, if I melt this above 90 degrees and then I just let it cool, it'll turn into this, okay? Hypothetically, I could set the temperature of this house at 89 degrees, and maybe over a 24-hour period, this would melt and it would still be in temper, meaning I could then use that chocolate to dip my confections in, okay? But obviously, That would take too long, so we have a process as chocolatiers to temper that chocolate. I'm going to teach you the seed method, which is what you're going to use your microwaves, okay? And we're going to jump right into that. And there's a couple different things that you're going to need. You're going to need a bowl. This might shock you, actually, but I use a stainless steel bowl in the microwave. I Googled it, and as long as there's no edges on it, it's not going to get that arcing and burn your house down. With that said, you might feel better about using a silicone bowl. The reason I prefer the stainless steel or the silicone is because the bowl doesn't get too hot. Just the chocolate gets heated up. If you use like a ceramic or a glass bowl, that's okay. The bowl's just going to get really hot, okay? I have measured out 1,000 grams. Well, I use a scale. You may not have a scale at home, and that's okay. But the concept is you're going to melt in increments in our microwave. If you do 4 cups or whatever, 5 cups, 6 cups, you're going to melt that portion of chocolate. I've gotten 1,000 grams. Okay, so I'm going to destroy that Form 5 cocoa butter crystals, and then I've got this tempered chocolate. This is the Aggie chocolate. It's the same chocolate. Okay, this is the same chocolate, but this is tempered. This is not. This is going to act as our seed chocolate. Okay, once I've melted this chocolate, we're going to take it up to 110 degrees. I'm sorry, this represents 20% of this, okay? So if you do 5 cups of melted chocolate, you're gonna need 1 cup of seed chocolate, okay? It's okay if it's not chopped up, it's just not gonna all melt. So when we get to the right temperature, when we're cooling it down, you're gonna remove any chunks that are left over, okay? And it's okay if there's some chunks left over, you just kind of have to deal with it. Let's see, what else? I think we should get going with that. I'll keep talking about chocolate. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna put this chocolate that I'm gonna melt in the microwave. The first one I'm gonna do for like a minute, okay? We don't wanna do it, we're not gonna melt it all at once because chocolate can scorch pretty easily. So we wanna melt the chocolate in increments, okay? So I'm gonna put it in the microwave for like a minute. This is a dark chocolate, and you can do it a little bit longer than a milk chocolate. If you've got a milk chocolate at home, maybe do it for like 50 seconds, and then we're gonna do shorter and shorter increments. So I'm gonna get this going. Hopefully the microwave doesn't mess up our equipment. You're gonna need a digital thermometer, probably when it's all melted, but I've got this, it's kind of cheesy, but it's also kind of cool. It's a thermometer in a spatula, and I'm going to use this to stir this chocolate. And as I'm stirring it, I'm going to be checking the temperature. Tempering chocolate, it's really 3 variables. It's temperature. Temperature is really important. That's why you're going to need your digital thermometer. You can use a candy thermometer, with the mercury, but it's just it's a little bit trickier. It's a little bit slower. And then it's going to be time. You need time for those cocoa butter crystals to seed the melted chocolate. And then it's movement. So we're going to be stirring the chocolate, distributing those Form 5 cocoa butter crystals throughout the chocolate. And there's the microwave. Yes?
One question was, what power does your microwave need to be on? Does it need to be on full power, or do you reduce it?
I do it on full. Yeah, good question. I do it on full. You may have to feel out your microwave. See, this hasn't even melted yet. It's starting to heat up, but it hasn't melted yet. I'm just going to kind of shake it around, move it around. I'm going to do it for another 55 seconds. And every chocolate's a little bit different, okay? I want to talk to you about a few different kinds of chocolate. And so you kind of have to get a feel for the chocolate and how it tempers. That's part of my job. That's kind of your job as a chocolatier, okay? White chocolate is going to have a lot of cocoa butter in it. I've found that sometimes it can be a little bit easier to temper. Again, some people don't call it chocolate because it doesn't have any cocoa solids in it. It doesn't have any of the nibs in it from the cocoa seeds, but it has the extracted cocoa butter, okay? This chocolate is actually designed for molding, okay? So we wouldn't use this for dipping. It's not thick enough. And some of the nicer, fancier chocolates, it'll tell you right here with the fluidity. This has a 4 out of 5 fluidity. So I know that I can use this for like when I mold chocolates, okay? I'm going to put that back in really quick. Yeah, feel free to let me know as questions come up. It's starting to melt a little bit. I'm going to put that in for another 50 seconds. This is kind of a fun thing. Am I too close? Okay. So one of the ways you can make confections is with molds. This is a polycarbonate mold with a magnet backing, right? And the magnet backing is so that I can put some colored cocoa butter transfer sheets on this back side. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I've got this colored cocoa butter. This is cocoa butter that's been colored, and it's printed on this plastic, okay? And I put it on the back of this mold. This one's not quite cut to shape, but that's okay. So I put the magnet back on the mold, okay? A molding chocolate like this, I would temper it. I'd pour it in the mold, so this is all filled up with chocolate. Dump it out, and the reason I need it to be fluid is because if it's not fluid and I try to dump it out, nothing's going to come out, or it's going to be too thick. It's going to leave too thick of a shell, and you don't want that for molded chocolates, okay? Because we're going to fill it with like a ganache. You could fill it with a ganache or a gianduja, or marshmallow, anything really. Fondant, buttercream, and then you cap it with more chocolate, and then what you do is when it's cooled and set, you'll pop those chocolates out, and this really cool design will be on the chocolate. And so that's kind of fun. So this is a molding chocolate, okay? The chocolate that I had the Aggie chocolate factory get me is a dipping chocolate, so it's not as fluid. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, it's starting to melt some. I'm going to poke around in here a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. But we're going to have to do this. We'll probably have to do this 10 times, and that's okay. Okay. Let's see here. A big thing with chocolate right now is single origin chocolate. These are from the Aggie chocolate factory. And when I say single origin, I'm talking about cocoa beans that come from one country, sometimes even just one farm. You know, if you buy a Hershey's bar, the cacao seeds, you don't know where it's coming from. Like with this chocolate, it's a Guittard Old French vanilla. It doesn't tell you where the cocoa beans are from. So I have no idea where these cocoa beans are from. And the farm and where they're from, the soil, the temperature, the climate, that can affect the flavor of the beans. And so it's really cool that the Aggie Chocolate Factory is on board with that. Guess how many ingredients are in these chocolate bars? There's 2 ingredients. Did anybody guess that right? Just kidding. This is just cocoa solids and sugar. And so this is really pure chocolate, and I've tasted it, and it's delicious, and you can taste these different notes, honey and berries, and strong chocolate flavors and cocoa flavors, and they're awesome. They're not cheap, but you're gonna if you taste one, you're gonna know why. Okay. This is a single origin from Hawaii. This is a really delicious chocolate, but it also they cheat a little bit because it has vanilla in it. Sometimes you'll see chocolate that has vanilla. Sometimes you'll see ingredients like soy lecithin which is really to make it more fluid. So this is a molding chocolate as well. Let's check that chocolate. All right, we're getting closer. Do we have any idea of like how many people are actually tempering chocolate at home?
I see lots of cameras on with.
Awesome.
I see several dozen
Who are
working with chocolate.
nice. Okay, we're still going. We're still melting. They're trying? Okay.
Also, John, we had a question that somebody asked, are we looking for a certain temperature or consistency or both?
110. 110. If it's dark chocolate, you can go a little bit higher. If it's white chocolate, go a little bit lower, like a degree or two. But if you do it too hot, like if let's say you get it to 115, you're going to need to wait till you get it back to 110. You'll just stir it till it gets back to 110. Otherwise, all your seed chocolate's going to melt too soon. The other troubleshooting tip is if you do that, let's say you heat it up to 115 kind of on accident, you put it in for too long. You can put in your seed chocolate. Again, the seed chocolate is just that already tempered chocolate, okay? It's the same kind of chocolate. You're not going to go to the store and find, you know, if you ask for seed chocolate, they're going to say, it's not a separate kind of chocolate. It's the same chocolate that you're tempering. It's just the chocolate that is already tempered, right? It's already got that gloss. It's already got that shine and that snap, right? If you snap it, you can almost hear it. Let me see if you can hear it. Did you hear that? But yeah, so if you take it up too high, you can put in that seed chocolate, and then if it melts, the problem is if it is all melted when you get to like 95 degrees, you're not going to have enough seed chocolate. So I recommend you put in like a big chunk after 95 degrees. Keep stirring till it gets down to like 90, and then you take it out. Okay. All right. This is the Aggie chocolate is a little bit thicker chocolate than I'm used to, even for dipping. And so something I do to troubleshoot that is I add cocoa butter. It's kind of a little bit of an expensive way to make it a more fluid, thinner chocolate. The cheaper way is if you have some soy lecithin. But I'm going to add a little bit of cocoa butter just to thin this out. Just going to kind of eyeball that. If you notice that your chocolate's, you know, once it gets to that 110, if it's really thick at that temperature, you can go buy some cocoa butter. This is called My Cryo. And this is tempered cocoa butter, actually. Let's see, what else? Oh, if you bought this chocolate candy coating, I'm really sorry. I probably should have warned you. It's fine. No, it's not. It's not fine. I would say this is not chocolate. It has cocoa solids, but they've extracted the cocoa butter and they've added vegetable oil. Okay, and so you don't have to temper this. This kind of chocolate's going to have kind of a waxy feel because they've taken out that cocoa butter and they've added vegetable oil. So you can just melt this. I just bought it to show you something to avoid if you want to make delicious chocolates. Now, with that said, that might sound kind of snotty. I apologize. If you want to focus on like your confection, like let's say you're not too worried about the chocolate, it's just kind of an afterthought. You could make a candy, or if you wanted to dip strawberries, and you could use this and it'd be really easy. Okay. All right. So it's all melted, but it's not going to be warm enough just yet. So I'm going to have to heat it up for a little bit longer.
Hey John, we have a question.
Yeah.
Where do you get seed chocolate when you're starting from scratch?
So again, the seed chocolate is going to be, you just want to buy tempered chocolate, any kind of tempered chocolate. So if you look at the ingredients, you're looking for something that has cocoa butter in it, okay? So some really popular brands are Guittard. A lot of the Guittard chocolates are really good. This is a Guittard. They have a milk chocolate called Old Dutch, which I like. And so anything that has cocoa butter in it, you can temper. And they're going to sell it. They're going to sell it tempered, okay? So you don't have to temper it first like I did last night. You can. They're going to sell it tempered. So you just set aside some of that chocolate, and that is the chocolate you don't melt. And that's your seed chocolate, okay? So we're gonna take this up to 110 degrees, and then we're gonna add the tempered chocolate to bring it back down.
Okay, so John, somebody wants to know when you know that you've ruined your chocolate. What temperature is too high and you've ruined it?
Well, it'll scorch. it'll burn. And you'll be able to tell because it won't smell good. And so that's too high. Usually in my experience, that's like over 120. And so if you've gone over 120, that's too high. But so what you do, the trick is, as we're getting closer, we're going to do shorter increments. So like the last one, this last one I did for 30 seconds, okay? And let's take a look. I don't know if you can see that on my thermometer, but hey, Charlotte. So it's kind of rising kind of quickly. You can come this way, it's okay. My 5-year-old just came in the garage. Oh, this is 107. I might have heated this up too much, but that's okay. That's good because I'll show you how to troubleshoot that.
Hey John, somebody else said if they use this method, but it's still, it turns white, what are they doing wrong?
Sometimes you don't know. Usually when that happens, you didn't put in enough seed chocolate, or yeah, I heated this up too high. That's okay. We're going to just put in a little bit more seed chocolate than normal. So I'm going to get this going back down. Okay, let's just assume I'm at 110. Putting in that seed chocolate, okay? Putting in that seed chocolate, which is that tempered chocolate, it's going to start cooling it down. Okay, and now we are going to stir and stir and stir. Because again, tempering chocolate is time, movement, and what was the other one? Why am I blanking all of a sudden? Time, movement, and temperature. Because I'm not worried about the temperature. Well, I am, because I need to bring this down. Okay, so what's going to happen, because I heated it up too high, it got past 110, it got up to like 115. And because I heated it up too high, my seed chocolate, I've put it in there, it's going to melt too soon. Okay, because I really need that seed chocolate to start dispersing the proper cocoa butter crystals, those tempered cocoa butter crystals. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, to kind of troubleshoot that issue, I'm going to add more seed chocolate. Okay, and this is a different kind of chocolate. I'm really sorry, Aggie Chocolate Factory. I didn't have any more on hand, so I'm going to use this. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. That's probably good. Okay, so now, yeah, because my seed chocolate melted way too fast. It was like already melted, and I'm at like 107, so I added more seed chocolate. Okay, just a little troubleshooting tip.
Hey John, with that, somebody asked, what is the ratio of seed chocolate to?
So if you do the temperatures right, you should only need 20% of your total of the original melted chocolate. So if you do 1,000 grams of melted chocolate in this bowl, you set aside 200 grams of seed chocolate. Or if you're doing measuring, so for 5 cups, you set aside 1 cup. That's 20%, right? Thank you. Appreciate that. I was a Spanish major, so just kidding. Okay. I added a little bit more cocoa butter so it's not so thick. And we're down to 101. What I'm going to do is, I want to do this, okay? Just a little experiment. This chocolate's not tempered yet. It's not in temper. But I'm going to, I want to show you. I'm going to spread a thin layer of chocolate on parchment paper. Okay. And we're going to do that at 95 degrees too, and then we'll do it at 90 degrees. And then it should be in perfect temper when it's in 88 degrees. And then we'll do another, I'll spread it. I'm going to show you how the different temperatures make the chocolate, how it cools, okay? And the idea is that first thin spread of chocolate that I did, even though I did it first, it's going to set up last, which is kind of interesting. Okay, I'm at 95. I can see that some of my seed chocolate is still in there, so that's good. If it were all melted at this point, again, I would need to add like a chunk of dark chocolate. Well, or any kind of tempered chocolate. Any other questions?
Well, yeah, we have lots. So
Okay.
what consistency are you looking to achieve? That's kind of what you're going through right now, right?
Yeah. It depends on what you're going to be using it for. We're going to be using this today for enrobing some chocolates. Can you see this? You can see some of the seed chocolate still coming off. This is a thicker chocolate, but you just kind of have to get used to. See, I know that with this, I prefer a thinner chocolate. It's too late to add more cocoa butter because it'll be grainy if I do it now. But you just kind of have to play with it and get used to what you like. I prefer a thinner shell. I think it's a little bit funner to eat. Some people prefer a thicker shell. But oh my gosh, this chocolate smells so good. Aggie Chocolate Factory, I'm not just giving them a plug just because, but they're legit. Like they make awesome chocolate. It's delicious. I was raving about it to myself last night. It's so good. Their dark chocolate is just awesome. So we're at 93. Let's do another temper test. And again, I'm just spreading like a thin layer on parchment paper. When I think it's in temper, I always do a temper test. Even though I've done this hundreds of times, I always want to do a temper test because the worst thing is you temper chocolate and you dip all your confections and then it gets a white film on top and you're just like so frustrated. It's like the most frustrating thing. We're at 92. Yeah, as it gets towards the end, it's going to be slower, obviously, because it's the drops go slower. So to get from 92 to 91, it's slower than 110 to 105, and that's good because you need the time. See, right now, what's happening is those cocoa butter crystals are being distributed through this mass of melted chocolate, and again, this is the goal, right? This is the goal. So you have a confection that, it's glossy, it's shiny, it's beautiful, it's got snap, it's got mouthfeel. That's why we don't just melt chocolate and dip confections. There's a process to it, okay? Now, I use tempering machines. This is the manual method. I don't do this anymore. I make quite a bit of chocolates, Christmas time, Mother's Day. And so I'll show you my tempering machine, but seems like every time I do a class, I sell a couple tempering machines because they're just awesome and they make it so easy. And you can do a lot bigger quantity because the problem is, one of the things that makes it harder with this way is it takes time to dip your chocolates. It takes time to dip your confections. And this is going to get too cold. So I've actually got when we start dipping, I've got an electric blanket that I use just for dipping. I don't use it for anything else. It's not like I use it to like warm my bad back and then use it for chocolates. Like it's set aside just for chocolate dipping. I would recommend that as well. But it helps keep the chocolate kind of at that temperature you want while you're dipping, so you don't have to, otherwise you've got to get a heat gun because it's going to get too thick. If it gets to like 84 degrees, it's going to get too thick and it's going to be hard to work with on your sides. It just makes it difficult. The tempering machine makes it so it keeps your chocolate at that like 88.6, well, 86.8 degrees, and you can work with it, and it's awesome. More questions? Other questions?
Yeah, somebody did actually ask about an infrared thermometer, if that works, if you don't have a spatula like what yours is.
You know, I've tried, I don't like them, and maybe the one I got was not accurate. Maybe I kind of feel like if you get one of those, spend a lot of money so that's accurate. With that said, you've got to check all your thermometers. In candy making, in chocolates, your thermometers have to be accurate. So with everyone, I've got like 10 of these. You have to do a boil test, right, to make sure it's accurate. I think in Cache Valley, it depends on the altitude, but I think it's like 112 degrees, 212 degrees is where water should boil. And so with your thermometers, you know, make sure you do that boil test to make sure they're accurate. I've had trouble with the infrared because it would be nice because, you know, it makes it a little bit cleaner, right? Chocolate is messy, right? It's fat-based. I mean, when, you know, it doesn't clean up easily. Because it's fat-based, you know, cocoa butter is the fat. Water and chocolate do not mix, okay? If I were to get even a drop of water into this chocolate, it would seize up, it would get chalky and grainy, and your chocolate's ruined. That's why I don't like, you know, Grandma used to use like the double boiler method for melting and tempering chocolate. I don't like it. I just feel like it's too risky. Now with that said, some of you at home may be pros at it. I don't like it because I feel like, why would I want to put any chocolate or any water near my beautiful chocolate? Okay, we're at 90.9. I'm going to do another temper test.
Hey John, while you're doing that, somebody had a question about, can you freeze your seed chocolate?
You can, yeah, you can. It seems like if you keep it in a basement in a cool, dark place, it'll last about a year, you know, maybe even longer. But yeah, you can freeze it. Again, I worry about condensation, but I've never frozen my chocolate. I just keep it in a cool place. Yeah, that's a great question. What else we got?
Somebody asked if theirs is 100 degrees, can they still add chocolate to temper it?
Oh yes. If all of their seed chocolate is melted, I would definitely add some more seed, more tempered chocolate, okay? And I'm really happy with how this is turning out. It's, you know what I'm realizing? The warmth of my hand is making it so that it's not cooling down as fast as it should. So I'm going to put it on the cool counter. Oh, that's the other thing. My house is cold right now. Like I told my wife to be prepared because like I opened all the windows last night. I knew today was going to be a hot day in Cache Valley, so I opened all the windows to keep the house. It was like 62 degrees this morning. I tried to keep it cool all day. It's probably 70 degrees right now in this house, but I like to work around 68 degrees. Chocolate is really, it's a little bit easier in the wintertime because it's a lot better when it's a little bit cooler in the house. The chocolate sets up faster, it tempers easier. And so if you don't have your air conditioning on already, I'm sorry I didn't give you that warning. But yeah, it's a little bit easier to work in a cooler environment. Plus you don't sweat so much.
Okay, so I'm reading this direct quote.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a lazy heathen, but can I get similar results buying tempered chocolate and heating it to dipping temperature versus just tempering my own chocolate?
No. Because it's only tempered chocolate if you've tempered it. Once you've melted it past 90 degrees, you've destroyed that Form 5 cocoa butter crystal that makes it tempered chocolate, okay? So there's really not a difference between, how do I say it? You don't really buy tempered chocolate. The chocolate you're gonna, I mean, every chocolate you buy is tempered if it looks like this, versus if you buy this, if it looks like this when you buy it, you're gonna have to go through the tempering process to make it look like this, okay? Does that make sense?
Somebody wanted to know, do you have a favorite tempering machine?
So I use the ChocoVision Revolution 2. It's really I've got 3 of them now, but I wish I had a bigger capacity one. My mom has it's like a 20-pound capacity one. It's awesome, but they're like too expensive. They're like $2,500. I'm hoping, Mom, if you're watching by chance, I'd love to inherit that someday soon. But yeah, the ChocoVision, they're awesome. It's kind of what you're used to. There's other brands out there. When I read reviews online, it seems like the ChocoVision, they do it right. Okay, we're at 89. I bet you we're in temper. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, it goes by so fast. Okay. This is gonna be in temper. I just did my last temper test. I am now gonna turn on my electric blanket because I wanna show you how I dip. If Spencer were here, I'm sure he'd break out into song about, when I dip, you dip, we dip, yeah. Classic, for all you young guys, all young people, that's like a early 2000s hit. Okay, awesome. I've turned on my electric blanket to the lowest setting, and that should help keep this so that it stays a little bit in the right temperature. Now, I'm gonna want to keep this in here because I'm gonna want to see. This is at 89 degrees. Okay. It's in temper. I can already tell. It's already setting up really fast. See, I can already peel it off. It's not quite where it needs to be. It actually takes like a day where it needs to be, but if I can peel it off already, I know it's going to be in temper. And I'm going to eat that because that's delicious. Okay. All right. If you are going to use the microwave, if this gets to a point where it's getting unworkable, it gets down to 84, 83 degrees, and you're just like, this is too thick, I can't work with this, and you put it in the microwave, very short bursts to heat it back up, 6-7 seconds. Again, if you bring this up over 90 degrees, those cocoa butter crystals that you want are destroyed. So you have to restart the process. You'd have to do that all over again. Okay? All right. I'm going to start dipping. I've made buttercreams. Can you see that? I've made pineapple buttercreams, raspberry buttercreams. I can send you the recipes if you want. I'm not a believer in hoarding recipes. I think a chocolatier should be much more than their recipes. And you should always be creative and trying new things. So I'm happy to send recipes. And I've made caramels, and I've made sponge toffee, and we're gonna dip all of those. I'm gonna show you some techniques for that are kind of fun. I need a drink of water.
So John, what temperature should your chocolate be at when you're ready to dip?
88 and a half, 89 degrees. Yeah. It's okay if it's a little bit warmer for dark, a little bit cooler for milk.
And do you have a preference between dark or milk? That was a question a little bit earlier.
I prefer dark chocolate, but I have a sweet tooth too. I love milk chocolate, and I even like white chocolate. I feel like the white chocolate pairs really well with like citrus flavors, so I'll do like a lime coconut buttercream and do that in white chocolate. Or I experimented with a peach. I experimented with a peach this week and just did some white chocolate. This is just peach buttercream, so it's sugar, corn syrup, cream, milk. And it's really a fondant, kind of like a fudge consistency. And it seems like the fruit flavors compare really well. I'm going to actually do the raspberry and the pineapple in dark because I think those pair really well. All right. First thing I do, if I do like a buttercream, okay, I'm going to paint the bottom of it. Okay, I've got parchment. I've got parchment paper right here. Sometimes I'll use like an acetate sheet, kind of like how they used to do the old transparencies, and it makes the bottoms shiny. But I like to paint the bottoms first for a couple reasons, which I'm going to show you in a second. Ooh, this knife's cold. It's like already solidifying. I'll just do a few of those. Any other questions?
Well, so I think what we'll do is we'll get the recipes from you and we'll have Sheldon send it out to the group. He's been the one kind of communicating. But Georgia wants you to bring him to work tomorrow.
Hey, Georgia. You got it. Oops, that was too thick.
What is sponge caramel? Somebody's asking what sponge caramel
So
is.
sponge toffee is, sometimes they call it sea foam. What else? Honeycomb, right? It's a really complicated recipe of sugar and corn syrup. And it's just sugar, corn syrup, vanilla. You heat it up to 295, 300 degrees, and then you add a couple tablespoons of baking soda so it gets those air bubbles in it. I'm going to show you the sponge toffee. So here's the sponge toffee. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? So there's the sponge toffee. I'll put a couple over here so I can dip those. The sponge toffee, I like to put on, I've got, again, this colored cocoa butter sheet. And so I like to dip it and put it on this because once that chocolate hardens and cools, that design is going to transfer to the sponge toffee. This is doing well. So this is still at 89, so that's good. And then I've made some caramels. The caramels, I like to use this silicone, these molds. It just makes it so much easier. I use a funnel and I fill the molds, and they pop out so easily. And
this is what you made on our Instagram story yesterday,
yes,
right?
yes.
Was it Gracie helping you with?
Yeah, Gracie helped me.
And this is your grandma's recipe, right?
Yes. And it's pretty easy. The caramels, I'd say, are the easiest, but it seems like I get a lot of people like those the best, which I'm kind of like, well, those are the easiest. Tell me you like the ones that are harder. But
somebody's asking, what funnel do you use to fill the molds?
I'll show you. I think it's up here. It's a plastic funnel. Where did I put that? You can buy them on Amazon. Maybe it's in here. Here's my, well, I can't find it. It might be in the, actually it might be in the dishwasher. It's a plastic funnel. It's, if you use the metal ones, it's not gonna come out so easy, okay? Okay. I'm gonna do a couple. All right. Is there any way, should I come, I want them to kind of get an up close on this. Is there any way to do that? Is there any way to get over here? Should I come over here? Awesome. Okay. Don't want to melt that. This will melt, so if I put that on the electric sheet, it'll melt. But all right. This is a this is a texture sheet. If you wanted to add a texture to your chocolate, you would use this this plastic sheet, and that's kind of fun. Okay, so I've painted the bottoms of these, and there's a reason why. I need my knife. And it's so that they don't leak, okay? And then also, when you're dipping chocolates, what you don't want, and I'll show you, I'll do a bad example. Oh, this chocolate's thick. You're trying to avoid a foot. So if I leave all that chocolate on the bottom, it's gonna pool. And I don't know if you can see that, so it leaves a foot. So I'm a big believer in that the prettier the chocolate is, the better it's gonna taste, because we eat with our eyes first. So I'm dumping that in the chocolate, kind of getting it all coated in chocolate. Ooh, this chocolate's thick. I needed to add more cocoa butter. That's okay though. And then I'm gonna take off the chocolate from the bottom with a knife. And then I'm just gonna let this kind of slide off. If you can get an edge to touch the parchment, it'll come off easier. And I kind of paint down the backside to make sure it's all covered. This chocolate's really thick. I'm gonna show you my tempering machine, because I like to work with that. I'm gonna bring this over here. Can you see that? Okay, so this is a milk chocolate. I actually like to do the caramels in milk. I throw it in there. I take off some chocolate off the bottom so I don't get that pooling effect, right? Because I want this to be beautiful. Kind of get an edge to touch the parchment and let it slide off. Kind of paint down the backside so you kind of, when you use a fork like this, it kind of makes some holes when you pull it out from under. And then with the caramels, I like to put some salt on top. Be kind of generous with it. Okay. I go through a lot of paper towels because the chocolate tends to build up on these kind of forks. The other tool you can use is something like this. Can you see that? Some people like to use this. I'll show you how you do that. I prefer the method with the fork where you pull it out from under because I like to make a really smooth top. But you can use something like this. Okay. Just kind of throw it in there, and then you grab it by the top, right? Same thing though. I don't want it to pool, so I got to take off some excess chocolate. And again, you'll get a feel for this depending on how thick your chocolate is. And just kind of make it pretty, right? Do a couple more of those. I've actually painted with dark chocolate. I'm using milk chocolate. That's totally fine, but just to show you kind of how the dipping method goes.
So are the fillings cold or are they room temperature?
They're room temperature. Yeah. You can, like, let's say the buttercreams are too soft, right? You can refrigerate them, but you have to be careful because it's going to cool down your chocolate and it can sometimes mess with the temper, okay? Let me do a couple more caramels.
Somebody's asking if you use molds for your buttercream centers.
Say that again?
Do you use molds for the buttercream centers?
No. Yeah, those are hand rolled. You just kind of get a feel for it. Some are bigger than others. But in in a box of chocolates, you usually only have one or two of each kind, so people can't really tell that they weren't all perfect.
We have someone else who's asking, have you ever used your fingers?
You know, I know like Bluebird does that. I don't. Personal preference. This milk chocolate is also from the Aggie Chocolate Factory. Whoops. I like to keep my utensils clean, otherwise the chocolate builds up and it just makes it harder to make them pretty. You can do like designs. Let me do, I like to use sometimes like a freeze-dried raspberry powder just to sprinkle it a little bit while it's still wet. It's kind of fun if you can somehow differentiate, every kind of flavor in your box. My wife, Haley, is actually a designer. She makes this really cool, chart to show you which chocolates are which, and it's kind of fun. Makes it kind of just an added little special touch. All right, let's do some sponge toffee. Sponge toffee I usually do in milk. In sponge toffee I actually like to use this guy because with the sponge toffee, where we're using the cocoa butter sheet, the bottom is going to be your top, right? So, because when you put it in the box, you want the cool design showing on top, right? You don't have to worry, with the sponge toffee, you don't have to worry so much about taking off chocolate, again, because the bottom becomes the top. Let me get a couple more of those. Just make sure it's totally enrobed. At the Aggie Chocolate Factory, they've got this cool enrobing machine with it's got a waterfall of chocolate, and it's kind of mesmerizing, honestly. The sponge toffee is always trickier. Let me see if I can get this to balance. There we go. And then, these are really designed. These machines are designed for home chocolate making. They're not huge capacity. Really, I can go through about a batch of buttercreams before. There we go. I need to retemper the chocolate. But what other questions do we have? Are we out of questions?
What kind of spatula thermometer is that, and where would you get one?
This is a Gourmia. I found it on Amazon, and
that's the favorite one. That's when you say you have multiples of.
Yeah, for classes, I've got a bunch of these, and like I said, they're kind of cheesy. So you got to test them in the boil water method just to make sure, that it's accurate. Yeah. Let's see. What else could I tell you? It's so much fun. It's such a fun hobby. I don't sell these chocolates. This is something I do for friends, family, clients. Around Christmas time, Valentine's, Easter, Mother's Day. Summertime it gets too hot to really be able to work with it. The house just gets too hot.
So your kids aren't doing a lemonade stand with chocolates, with your chocolates? No. We can't find that.
No.
But if they come find you at Bank of Utah and become a client, then maybe they can get on the Christmas list?
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, so it's been fun.
Do you have classes that you sign up for? I know you've done a few different types of things like this.
So not personally. Coley Peterson she's got a kitchen in town called Coley's Kitchen. It's really awesome, and she's had me teach a couple classes, and that's been really fun. Orson Giggy has had me, we know the owners of Orson Giggy, and they've had me come teach some classes, and that's been really fun, and they do a really nice job. Let's see, what else? Oh, I forgot about designs. So with like the pineapple, there's some fun things you can do with like designs. So like you can get this colored cocoa butter, at Chef Rubber online. And this has to be tempered as well. But you can do lots of fun designs with this. Sometimes it's fun so what you do is you melt like 3/4 of this bottle, and then you just shake it until it's all melted, and then it should be in temper. And then I'll pour this out into a bowl, again with like the electric blanket so I can keep it in the right temperature. And you can just kind of play with it, and you get a toothbrush, unused, and kind of make gold specks. This is a gold luster cocoa butter. You can make some cool designs on the top of the chocolates. People also do it on their polycarbonate molds. Let me see, where did I put that mold? So you can get the cocoa butter and make some like splatter effects with a paintbrush, and then once that chocolate cools and you dump that chocolate out, or you get that out of the mold, the cocoa butter will have that design will have solidified on the chocolate. So that's really fun too. Let's see, what else could I tell you? I'm excited to give away a box of chocolates. When the cameras are turned off, I'm gonna keep dipping. I'm gonna dip the rest of the caramels and the buttercreams and the sponge toffee, and I'm excited to give away a box of chocolates to somebody. I hope you like it, but it's a really fun hobby, and it's kind of my way of, if I give you a box of chocolates at Christmas time, it's my way of, telling people I care about them, and they mean a lot to me. So that's been really fun. Anything else? Are we out of time?
We are just about there. Nice. I think a last question people had asked a couple different times of like, if you're just going to the grocery store, what kind of chocolate? So if I'm just headed down to Lee's Market, what kind of chocolate? So
Lee's will sometimes sell the Old Dutch. If you go to the baking section, they'll sometimes sell the Old Dutch, Guittard. Orson Giggy's is a great place. That's down in Salt Lake. Love to Cook in town sells all that kind of chocolate. If you go to Kitchen Needs, Love to Cook, they'll sell it as well. A lot of my chocolate I get through Orson Giggy, and then there's a place called Chocosphere. If Orson Giggy doesn't have it, but they've got a ton of stuff though. If they don't have it, sometimes I'll go to chocosphere.com. They've got a lot of different chocolates. But that's a really good question. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise.
It was fun.
I'm excited that I'm here because I get to taste test. Sorry for everybody else. Also, Deandra Heaps is the person who won. So when we had the little fun Instagram takeover, I hope you guys all got to see that. And if you haven't, go to Instagram and at Utah State Alumni. That's our social media handle. And if you go to our stories, or in our highlights, it's in our highlights, that story is. But the question was, how many times did we see your jersey? And the answer is 4, and she was the first one. So anyway, and then we have, so she'll be winning your box of chocolates that you were showcasing that. So we're excited for that. We want to thank everyone for joining us. We are going to get all these recipes, all the sponge, and then grandma's caramels and
Grandma
stuff like
Hall's
that.
caramels. Yep.
So we'll grab all that stuff, and we'll make sure that we send it out to everyone who registered for tonight. So we appreciate everyone. Thank you again, John.
Awesome.
And everyone have a good night. Thank you.